Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, and this podcast is real. It's a real podcast. I'm doing it right now. You believe me, don't you? I'm not making up a podcast. It's happening right now.
You know, Jason, that may be your worst impression yet. I feel like you usually nail these obscure people where we have to explain this is a very good impression of this actor from this movie. That was not that.
You didn't even think I got the cadence. I got the cadence right.
You're really, I mean, you've exaggerated it to the point of ridiculousness, which I mean, I suppose is part of a comedic impression, but I don't think it really worked. But we'll get into that.
You two will have to handle the rest of the episode without me.
That's
the only
Jason.
Honorable solution is seppuku. So
that's all he has at this point.
I'm going to slit my belly from left to right and regain my family's honor via suicide.
Oh, okay.
Of the samurai style.
Yeah, no samurai in this episode, but we are talking about the films of...
You know, Josh, your transitions are usually spot on, but that might have been your lamest transition ever, Josh.
Right. Well, that's fair. I'll take that criticism.
Usually we talk about how great your transitions are, but that might have been your worst one.
Well, I'm sorry. I'll try to work on that. But we're here in our season on the films of 1971. And we're talking about my pick, which is Let's Scare Jessica to Death, the debut from director John D. Hancock, who was a theater director and made his feature film debut here with this horror movie / kind of psychological thriller starring Zohra Lampert as the main character, Jessica, who moves with her husband and a friend of theirs to a farmhouse in Connecticut and either sees some terrifying things or maybe is just losing her mind. Who is to say? Maybe we are to say as this episode.
It's real.
Jason's going to keep doubling down on that.
It's happening.
This is, I feel like I had a nice time last season picking a movie that Jason really liked. And I got to hear Jason say, thank you for picking this movie. But I think we're back to Jason not liking my picks, but that's okay.
You really shat the bed on this one, Josh.
I was right.
Your backup option was Clute, and you went with this instead.
Clute is great, and maybe we'll get to talk about Clute someday. But I wanted to revisit this film, which I really liked. And as we'll talk about, movie that did not necessarily get recognition that I feel like it deserved when it first came out, but has since become quite a cult classic and quite a favorite. I'm certainly not the only person who likes this film.
Yeah, that's true. I give you that.
Thank you. And not even the only person on this podcast who likes this film. But certainly at the time,
Dave.
At the time, it was not necessarily well received. It was, again, Hancock's debut. He cast this mostly with people that he had worked with in his theater career. And, we'll talk about the subsequent work of these people later. But these were none of these actors. Barton Heyman, who plays Jessica's husband, Kevin O'Connor, who plays their family friend, Gretchen Corbett, Mariclare Costello, they round out the cast. I was not familiar with any of these people when I first saw the movie, nor have I really been familiar with them from other stuff. But I think it works because this is a cast of people that this director has worked with before, and he is able to get them all to kind of work in the same vein for the very specific tone that this movie is going for.
Well, that's certainly not the issue for me. Obviously, I love, New York theater actors, and we've talked about a lot of them in films like Moonstruck and, one of my favorite movies, The Day Trippers, which we haven't covered yet, but that's a lot of actors you would recognize now that you might not have when it came out, that were all theater actors. And I mean, Trees Lounge, a lot of that too. So the issue wasn't the acting, it's the nonsensical script, Josh.
Well, as we know, Jason is the logic police here, and this is...
I'm not, and Josh, I'm not the only one on this. A lot of the criticism is that it doesn't make any sense.
That is true, yes. I mean, we'll get to the reviews, but that is absolutely one of the main criticisms that was put forth. Although, surprisingly, in the contemporary reviews, the performances came under heavy criticism as well. And I'm glad, Jason, that you didn't feel like the performances were a problem, because I think the acting in this movie is quite strong.
I think the three leads are good. The bad guy character, she was not much for me.
Okay. This movie, I think, it was hard to say. I couldn't find an overall box office figure. It was produced on a budget of $250,000, made independently, and then picked up for distribution by Paramount. And it seems like it did decently well. Although it was misleadingly marketed, Paramount picked it up. They changed the title from the original title of simply Jessica to Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which I will say, on the one hand, kudos to whatever marketing executive came up with that, because it is one of the great horror movie titles of all time. On the other hand, it is not exactly representative of the content of this film. And you see there's a poster with like a skeleton hand reaching up, and it was marketed as like a vampire movie. So I could see audiences, and we've talked about this like with A Bay of Blood, and I think some other stuff recently, where these films would get retitled or remarketed and put out in drive-ins to entice audiences. And I could see some horror audiences going to a drive-in for Let's Scare Jessica to Death and being like, what the hell did we get here? Because that's not what we wanted.
I mean, the real disappointment is, marketing people are always so honest. So for someone to lie to you it's just unbecoming of the entire profession.
I mean, honestly, though, I love this title, and I feel like
it's a good title. I agree with you, just for that.
And I think from a certain perspective, it does make sense, but it is absolutely more sensationalistic than the content of the film itself, I think. So
you're a sensation in my book, buddy.
Well, thank you. Oh, now we're back to being friends. I'm glad.
Nice.
Glad that we could resolve those differences.
And then, this is important. The audience can see this is conflict resolution between us, Josh. So, take an example. Don't let insults about a mid-movie really throw your friendship off.
I agree. If we did that, we would really have trouble having a podcast about movies. I think it'd be a rough time. But this was originally, and Jason, this maybe goes to some of what your complaints about the script, that when John Hancock signed on to direct this movie, it was a comedy. It was a satirical script, kind of making fun of horror movies about these hippies going and taking up residence in this rural house and being killed by a monster in a lake. And he agreed to do the movie only if he could completely rework that. And it became, this is not a comedy at all. There's nothing funny about this film. And he reworked it into this kind of eerie ghost story, Henry James, turn of the screw kind of tone, which I think works really well. But having to retain some of the plot points from the original script may have harmed the coherence of the narrative, let's say. And it seems like you thought that.
Yeah, let's just throw it out there, Josh. Let's acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Josh, okay? When I was reading, doing research after I watched this movie, they were like, it's a vampire movie. I watched the entire movie and never once thought it was a vampire movie.
I 100% agree with you, and I don't think that's a problem at all. The people saying it's a vampire movie are, again, marketing at Paramount, or surprisingly, a lot of the reviews that I read, which might have gotten it from a press kit or something. I don't know. But yeah, I've seen this movie twice now and didn't look up that information either until after I watched it this most recent time. And I never would have thought that this was a vampire movie. But again, I don't think that's a knock against it.
No, I do, because you're just saying it was marketed that way. I'm saying there's clear confusion that way.
Confusion. Well, did you think that? See, I feel like if you were watching the movie and you're like, oh, are they vampires or are they not vampires? And you were confused as a viewer about the vampirism, then that is. But you're saying you didn't even think of it, which is what I was thinking too, until you read it on Wikipedia.
Right. But then you're like, okay, this could be. I'm saying they didn't push it. If it was supposed to be a vampire movie, they certainly didn't push it that way. And if it wasn't, then they shouldn't have left that doubt, because it didn't add anything to it.
But again, I don't think there's like one moment in the movie, I think, where to me it sort of looked like it could be a vampire thing, where the one character looks like maybe she's biting a neck, although it's not even clear. So
yeah, that was one. And
I
then
didn't
also
feel like
the fact that there's a undead girl from the 1850s that appears and disappears at random.
There are many supernatural explanations for that, as we've seen in many horror movies. So, I mean, I think the one thing I'll agree with you that if the intention was to make a vampire movie, then this is a failure. But I don't think that that was the intention. And the idea of the ambiguity, and that's in some reviews too, it's like, maybe they're vampires. Maybe they're zombies. Maybe she's a ghost of somebody from the 1850s. We don't know because Jessica doesn't know. And maybe it's all in Jessica's head too. And that's like the core theme of the movie.
Yeah, I got that. I don't think it was done in a way that is as clear and as crisp as I would have needed for it to maximize the returns, Josh.
Yeah,
and that's all I'm about here. Maximizing returns, baby.
Maximizing returns is the best way to watch movies, I think.
Cinema.
Yeah.
I'm the first guy that did that.
Clear and crisp are two things that I did not want from this movie. But I want to, like, the vampire thing is fascinating to me, Jason, because you're right. Like, I was totally taken aback by the fact that so many people assumed that this was a vampire movie. Dave, did you get that at all from watching it?
No, not at all. Although I do think that there was a character at like a gas station or something that said like there's rumors of a vampire or something like that.
Did they actually use that word?
I thought they did, but still, it's just we have no idea what's going on, and I don't think the movie is telling you what's going on, at any point.
Right. It's just this kind of free-floating anxiety / danger. And that's, reinforced by the way the movie ends, that we're not going to explain it to you. So, but Jason, critics were mostly on your side on this film. They definitely were not particularly positive about it. Roger Greenspun in the New York Times said, "The thinking man's vampire movie, probably a secret dream for at least half the world's young filmmakers, tries to rise again in John Hancock's Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Although a disappointment generally, there are several things going for it. Among them, the pleasantly aggressive title, which has, as is proper, only the most casual relation to the movie. The local cove and the nearby town and the rest of the film's setting are among the other pleasures of Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which brings a rather discerning sense of place and season to its woods and its waters and the stairs and corridors of its ramshackle house. But toward its genre, it develops rather less feeling. You may not think it possible for a movie like this to say that at a certain point it ceases to make sense, but that is really what happens to Let's Scare Jessica to Death within a half hour of its beginning."
Yes. This is Alice's Restaurant done as a horror movie.
I did think of Alice's Restaurant, which was also about hippies kind of buying up this old derelict place in a small northeastern town and not being particularly welcomed by the local residents. So I'm with you on that. It definitely came to mind as well.
Yeah, and it was kind of as mishmashy as Alice's Restaurant, just kind of flowing and going and still going and still flowing, man.
Did you like the setting though? Did you feel like there was some?
Oh, atmosphere? I did. And actually, look, if I'm not going to trash it, the movie's not terrible, Josh. I just want everyone to know that you have bad taste. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it was good. And, we talked about one of my big sticking points on A Bay of Blood was that I didn't think the setting at all looked like what it was supposed to be. So I know they went around Connecticut and one of the producers had a house there and they found a very good atmosphere. And this is the type of movie even today we'd be like, hey, kids, let's make a movie. Let's find a single location, a cool town and, haunt it up. So, again, I didn't mind any of that stuff. Like I said, I like the leads. I like the concept. I like the setting. I just thought, it died on the page for me probably.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me, like you're saying a single location, but the exteriors and interiors of the house were two different houses and they flow together quite well, I think.
Yeah, that's right. They do.
So Stanley Eichelbaum in the San Francisco Examiner was not at all a fan of this.
Eichelbaum.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he's going to join your Italian film critic there in the wonderful
Vincenzo Casaretti.
Is that his name? Does he have a new name each time? I feel like that's possible.
It's still Vincenzo Casaretti. Right. His quote on this one was "Fanabla."
Thank you. Stanley Eichelbaum said, "Hancock has failed completely with a treacherous genre, the psychological ghost story, which is the single most difficult stunt to bring off effectively on the screen. It requires the utmost finesse and imagination. Otherwise, it tends to plunge into sheer ridiculousness. Hancock's film is gross, labored, and just plain laughable, like so many grade B horror flicks turned out for strictly commercial reasons. The plot's transparency is as annoying as the defective exposition, which takes forever to establish anyone's identity. Hancock's direction is ruinously disjointed and inconsistent. Nobody in the cast stands a chance, and they're all terrible.
Well, I guess my review was quite mild in comparison.
He went on further from there. I feel like that.
Yeah, I don't think Hancock's direction was bad. I don't know why that. Did you feel it was disjointed directing?
No. Again, I feel like it was fascinating to me that this started as such a different kind of movie, because I feel like Hancock has a really strong handle on the tone that he's going for, that it's very consistent, and that even if you're frustrated by the plotting, or even if you don't like the tone, you can realize, you can acknowledge that it is focused on exactly the atmosphere and the mood that he's going for from like the very beginning, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as you were saying, Lee Calcium was the original writer, and it was a satire about hippies being terrorized by a lake monster. It was called Drink Hippie Blood, or It Drinks Hippie Blood, which is another great title for a horror movie.
It is. I mean, I think of, I don't know if they were probably around this time in the 70s. I Drink Your Blood and I Eat Your Skin, which I once got a double feature DVD of, that are really nothing about either of those, but those are two like classic, exploitation movie titles. And maybe that was a play on those in some way.
Yeah. So, I kind of wanted that version of it, Josh.
Right. You wanted, I mean, the other thing I thought is, like you said, like a, B-grade horror movie strictly made for commercial purposes. But this does not seem like a movie that is designed just to, thrill teenage audiences or something like that.
No, or any audiences.
Anyway, Michael Kerbel in The Village Voice was slightly less harsh on this. He said, Let's Scare Jessica to Death is a minor film with major flaws, notably in most of its performances and in its technical quality. But it should not be abandoned immediately to the large refuse pile of horrendous horror movies released this year. As the film moves from one genre to another, the many familiar elements are suddenly placed in unfamiliar contexts, and the constant undermining of our expectations creates considerable tension. If nothing else, Jessica is worth seeing for the presence of Zohra Lampert, an intelligent actress whose talent has somehow never been sufficiently appreciated.
Some popular bad horror movies of 1971 include Lust for a Vampire, The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, and She Killed in Ecstasy. Have you seen those, Josh? Because that's what Google just told me.
Well, if Google told it to you, especially if it was the Google's AI, then I'm sure it was correct.
Blood and Lace, The Brotherhood of Satan.
That those movies, in fact, exist.
Ooh, here's one for Dave. The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, I think those are some of those are giallo movies that we had talked about potentially covering, and Lust for a Vampire is going to come up in our audience choice voting. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember. I think I have seen Lust for a Vampire. I've seen a bunch of those horny lady vampire movies that this was a big year for, that we'll get to in several episodes from now. But yeah, I don't know what specifically that critic is referring to in terms of bad horror movies from the year. But I did appreciate what he's saying about the horror elements being presented in a sort of different context, and that throws you off. I mean, even if you do think that there are vampires here, they're not presented in a traditional way. And I think that maybe makes the viewer a little off balance, much like Jessica is. And that's what the movie is going for.
Another word for traditional here could be clear. In a clear way, Josh, so you could understand if they're vampires or not. So.
Again, I think clear is not something that I wanted out of this movie, but
I definitely needed something to latch on to, Josh.
Clearly,
like she latched on to that man's neck. Heyo.
Yes.
I don't mind craziness. I like craziness in horror movies, but I don't like when they fall apart when you're supposed to get to something to kind of like piece it together, if you will, Josh.
See, but I feel like this is not a movie like that. Like, I agree with you. If you're setting up a lot of building blocks or whatever, and you are creating the expectations with clues and stuff, and then at some point the movie just throws up its hands and says like, who knows? I find that very frustrating. But I think from the moment this movie opens, it's got this like eerie, who knows what's real atmosphere. And that holds throughout the movie. You've got the narration from Jessica at the very beginning that's repeated at the very end that essentially says, who the hell knows what's happening?
Nobody, Josh.
Right, exactly, which is the point. So obviously I saw this before, I think a few years ago. I don't know what exactly spurred me to watch this. I think maybe just that it had this reputation as a cult classic and an influential horror movie, and quite possibly the title, which is a cool ass title.
It is a good title.
And I just was really impressed because I didn't know what to expect, and I thought it was so effective. So, Jason, of course, you had not seen this and had not had you heard of it at all? Even that had the title.
I mean, I think I might have heard of the title before. I don't really recall, but I do like the title. I was not impressed though with the rest of it.
Clearly not. So, Dave, had you ever seen this before?
I had not seen it, but I remember you bringing it up on our top 10 first time watches episode a few years back. And I've wanted to watch it since then. It sounded, especially because of the title, like something I would want to check out. And I'm glad I finally did.
I'm glad you did too, because you're going to be here to back me up. But yeah, that's true. I did mention it. So it was only a few years ago that I saw it, because we talked about it on one of those episodes, and it stuck in my mind. So
great. You got bum ass Dave for Let's Scare Jessica to Death and Sonic 3 on your side. Really great, Josh.
Another movie that you don't know what's happening the whole time.
I believe that. I haven't seen. I managed to avoid Sonic 3. I saw the first two, unfortunately. Jason, anything else you want to say about the background of this film?
Well, Josh, I have more quotes from Vincenzo Casaretti if you want to hear them. So,
I think Vincenzo has weighed in enough on so many films this season already.
You brought him into it today. As you said, they were all New York theater actors. Gretchen Corbett was the only one who had not worked with Hancock before. Hancock screened several films by Alfred Hitchcock to the cast prior to filming to show them a level of competence that they would never reach.
Oh, man. All right. We'll come back and talk more of our general thoughts on Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1971, we are talking about my pick, Let's Scare Jessica to Death. And Jason was not a fan of this film, but was there anything that you did like about it or that you thought was successful about it?
Yeah, I think we kind of went over that already, Josh. Okay. The setting was good. I like that the townsfolk had a secret. That's always a good thing for horror movies. Although I thought when it was explained, it was just straight exposition, which I know is, again, tropish, but I think it could have been done a little more cleverly.
The idea that the woman who lived in the house had died under mysterious circumstances.
Yeah, I just thought it was like, okay, we're halfway through Act 2, write a big chunk of dialogue so people know what's going on, as opposed to a little more organic stuff there. But you could definitely tell that it was like a little theater company. I don't know why they're ripping all the acting so much, these critics, but what is it that you love, Josh?
I do think the acting, I think all the things that you mentioned, the acting is very strong, especially Zohra Lampert in the lead. I love the atmosphere of the town. Whatever that real town is like, when they pull in initially on like this sort of dirt road and there's the weird old guy sitting outside the general store, it really immediately captured the atmosphere of like, you do not want to stop to use the bathroom in this town while you're on your road trip kind of thing. And I like that. I think there's a lot of themes there. And we mentioned Alice's Restaurant, which is a very different kind of movie. But on the other hand, the themes are similar. The idea of these sort of conservative, older, there's very pointedly one of the guys is wearing like a VFW jacket and see these hippies coming into their town, and they've bought up a house in the town, and they are not welcoming at all, and they're going to do what it takes to make sure that these people know that they're not supposed to be here, whether that's arresting them for dumping garbage or possibly sicking a vampire on them or whatever. It's a similar theme, and I thought it was conveyed without being heavy-handed about it. And there's a lot of other, the theme about mental illness. You've got that narration from Jessica the whole time. She's just been released from 6 months in an institution, and she doesn't trust herself. And there's multiple moments where she sees something that's scary, like a person, and she's thinking, oh God, what is that? And when someone else is like, hey, who's that over there? She just has this rush of relief, like you see it too. I just thought it was a really good portrayal of that sense of everybody knows I'm crazy, right? They know I'm crazy, and wanting to not reveal the fucked up thoughts that you have. I feel like that's, Jason, I feel like that's something you and I both can identify with.
Sure, that's fair. But I mean, so the inner monologue, you were into it?
Oh, I love the inner monologue in this movie. I think it's one of the best things about the movie.
I think it was no better than in Duel. So to me, it didn't really mean much in that. It was just, used when it was like, hey, let's put a ribbon on this type of thing. The townspeople, Josh, I'm going to give you another example of a movie you picked that I think is a way better example of how to execute the things that you're talking about. And set in the same area, the Stepford Wives, I think did this whole idea in a much better way of like, something's going on in the town. It's weird. It's creepy. It looks idyllic, but everybody knows something. And then when you get to the reveal, I think it's much more effective.
I mean, obviously, I love that movie because I picked it, and I like it more than this movie, I guess. I mean, I think they're both really good. The Stepford Wives, though, also is at a certain point at the end, you don't really know what the town's secret is.
I know what the town's secret is, Josh. They're turning their women into robot perfect wives.
But are they robots? Are they mind controlled? I feel like there is a certain ambiguity in that movie that maybe you were frustrated with.
Well, maybe in the Stepford Wives, I think it was built and shown in such a way that whatever loose ends there might be, as far as filling in the blanks, I was happier to do it with that because I was into the whole thing. Whereas this, I'm like, okay, there better be a real payoff here. And there wasn't for me. But you guys know this, like to a current movie like that I know everyone loves but me. Like I felt the same thing about Longlegs. And maybe I'm not the only one with that critique. But like once the reveal is, it's like, wah, wah, sad dong. It's just like, I don't know, man. As opposed to something like Sinners from this year, where the last hour gets insane once the reveals are out. I really love that.
It's interesting that you bring up Longlegs because to me, this movie is obviously a massive influence on Oz Perkins. And not only on Longlegs, but especially on his early films, like I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. I mean, that is straight up. You think the inner monologue, if you didn't like the inner monologue in this movie, I mean, there's so much of that kind of stuff in his films. And I have to imagine that this is a big influence on him. And so it makes sense that if you don't like what this movie is doing, that you wouldn't like what he does in most of his films.
Yeah, to me, like, again, I mean, I'm not shying away. Like I've given you two examples of films that I, involve similar themes that I think go further with them in more effective ways. So,
right.
Don't send your hate mail to me, guys.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, you're not the only one. This certainly has been reassessed, but at the time I had trouble. I was trying to find, I was like, okay, well, I'll grab a couple negative reviews and try to find a positive review. And I did not succeed in doing that. I picked out some positive aspects from other reviews, but certainly you're not the only person to be frustrated with this film. And I can see that.
So Josh, we've now covered A Bay of Blood and this, both of which trashed by the critics, both of which highly influential on the future of horror cinema. So where's the disconnect?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to say because for me, as we went through, like, I didn't like A Bay of Blood at all. I was with you on that. That movie, I having seen it twice, I don't get it. But I mean, I think part of it is that the people that it influenced were not were the young people who were going to the drive-ins maybe. And on the one hand, what I was saying, like maybe there were a lot of teenagers who went to see Let's Scare Jessica to Death and were disappointed because it wasn't some sort of exploitation schlock. But you can imagine there's just as many people who went with those expectations and maybe like I did went in thinking it's one kind of thing and were blown away by what it actually was and were shown greater potential for what a horror movie could do. And I mean, also, even if you don't like this movie or you don't like A Bay of Blood, a lot of influential stuff is built on into better stuff. I mean, I feel like this is like this entire story of Quentin Tarantino's career where he saw a lot of shitty exploitation movies and synthesized that into something more sophisticated. So I don't know.
Yeah.
You're saying Quentin Tarantino should remake this film, Josh?
Sure, why not? I think also to add to what Josh was saying, a lot of the things that happen in this and Bay of Blood are things we've seen literally like thousands of times in other horror movies, and maybe we are just a little bit jaded at this point.
Disagree. Stuff. I mean, that's like saying, oh, you watch the crop duster scene in North by Northwest and you can't be like, oh, it's no good because we've seen crazier, or the aviation scenes in Only Angel Have Wings. Like cinema lasts, Dave, if it's at the highest level, I think.
I suppose so. But at the same time, I definitely could see younger audiences watching those movies you just cited and not being blown away by them.
Yeah, I mean, that does happen, but I'm with you, Jason. I feel like that those examples obviously are great films. And because I think a lot of people are watching A Bay of Blood, not to go back and rehash our episode on that, and are impressed just like they would be if they watched Only Angels Have Wings or North by Northwest, and we weren't. I feel like this movie is just as strong. And Dave, you're right. So many movies. I think I literally just saw a movie that does. We were just talking about it, Dave and I, before recording, about a recent movie that does something very similar to this that really annoyed me. And
what movie?
It's this indie movie called The Beldam that I recently reviewed and Dave had done an episode on. But and that movie really, not to harp on that movie that no one has seen, but the thing that annoyed me about that movie the most was when it had a twist at the end that explained everything in a really, really stupid way. And I was into it when I didn't know what the explanation was.
Well, I'm going to look. Yes, 100%. That's just as bad as when the explanation is explain it to me again. They explain they give you the explanation and you were just like, this is so stupid. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, it explained everything. But explained everything in a way that like, oh yeah, all that stuff that you thought you saw, no, you didn't actually see that.
Honestly, going back to Longlegs, that's how I felt about that explanation at the end. I was like, this is ridiculous. I waited an hour and 40 minutes for this as an explanation. So, but I get it, man. It's all good, Josh. We're still friends. Dave, fuck off.
All right. Well, I'm glad I can take priority there over you. But I mean, the point is that like, whether it's that crappy movie or other good movies that do something similar to this, the fact that I've seen a lot of movies that do that did not diminish my appreciation for this movie that also does it and maybe did it before other movies.
Yeah, 100%. Josh, you and I are lovers of cinema, whereas Dave's a whore for the Las Vegas Film Society. So he'll just say, oh, this is good, this is bad. But we have strong stances, Josh, because we're not cucking ourselves with our love,
really
Dave.
Unnecessary pile-on here, Jason.
I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
Yeah, it's just
Did you have a point that you were getting to beyond insulting?
No, I told you I didn't know what I was even saying. I'm like, Jessica, is this even is what I'm saying even legitimate at this point in time, Josh? I don't know anymore. Josh, what about the scene where Jessica's husband bangs the girl staying with them, the lady staying with them? That kind of felt a little, just there for no reason to be as well.
Well, I mean, it's built up, right? We get the idea that Jessica immediately is like worried that her husband is attracted to this woman. First of all, who is squatting in the house that they just bought. And who shows up, even if you're not worried about like vampires or ghosts or zombies or whatever, who shows up to the house that you just bought, finds a squatter living there and is like, you know what? Stick around. hang out.
Well,
Let's be roommates. I mean, I feel like this
Yeah.
very much that's the hippie vibe that they're going for.
Well, but again, the nonsensical nature of it, right? Like I get it, the hippie vibe, and it's like, yeah, we'll let her stay a night. But then, as you said, she feels right away that like, this could be a threat to me and my husband. Jessica's the one who says, let's let her stay, not the husband. So how does that make sense?
Well, I think it goes to the idea that like she doesn't trust her own reactions, right? She thinks, oh God, my husband is attracted to this woman and he's going to cheat on me. And then she thinks, wait, no, I'm paranoid. I'm mentally ill. And this is an intrusive thought. I mean, these are things that I feel like people can identify with. The idea of not trusting your own reactions to something or being aware of your mental, she spent 6 months in treatment and being aware of the sort of patterns of your mental illness and trying to counteract that.
Even if that's the case, why is she letting her stay?
Because she's trying to show that she can be an open and generous person. And then when we have the scene where the husband hooks up with her anyway, it's like a validation of, okay, Jessica maybe does have a sense that something is wrong and she shouldn't constantly second guess herself or mistrust herself.
I thought that scene was more of a kind of forward movement for the friend who was living with them, who was in love with her. And, he knows that she's sleeping with the husband. But at the same time, like the second she shows attention to him again, he's just like, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it too, right? He kind of hits on her immediately and she rebuffs him. And then later on, he's like, what are you doing with my friend? He's mad not only that she doesn't want him, but that she is, messing with his friend's marriage. Then these people that is also Jessica's friend and he's supposed to be living with them. And this woman is coming in and destroying the tranquility of their little home.
Yeah. That's fair. Dave, I did like that this is one of the first horror movies to use a synthesizer in its score.
Is that true? I didn't realize that.
Orville Stober.
Yeah, I like this score a lot too. Dave, what did you think of the score?
I thought it was a great score. I also loved when the guy pulled out the bass and started playing some real deep fat grooves. It was good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a moment though also that like thematically shows, hey, he's going to have a connection to this squatter, right? She's got some kind of guitar and she's playing music and he goes and grabs his bass out of the very coffin looking case that's been, carried along with them. And that's part of the sort of eerie tone earlier on in the film. And, he has this groove that he's in with this other woman. And Jessica says before then, she's like, oh, I can't even carry a tune.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention, like, the reason I like this movie, and I think this speaks a lot to the things that Jason had problems with, but like, there's all these little threads of what might kind of send her down this path of like falling apart. And some of them she's allowing in, some of them are just happening to her, but they're all things, and you really have no idea which one is going to kind of send her spiraling. And I like that build of all that. So
just because I'm guessing people maybe have not seen this, Josh, right? As you said, these hippies move in, they find this squatter who everyone wants to sex, and they're like, hey, you stay here, right? Then Jessica starts getting kind of some supernatural, ickies feeling around, and she's walking around in the meadow or the field, and she sees a young lady who looks like the other young lady, right? The squatter, and she's in a wedding dress.
Similar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, she runs, she chases her, she finds a body, maybe she doesn't find a body. We don't know. And this kind of 1800s white wedding dress lady keeps coming back like underwater or in the distance and stuff. And then they follow her, and what happens? Kind of nothing, but then the other lady bites him in the neck, and she's a vampire. What happens, Josh? Explain this to me.
Well, what happens is everything breaks down, whether it's Jessica's mental state is breaking down or the townspeople are revealing their true nature as supernatural ghouls of some sort. Then, Jessica's husband has been killed, their friend has been killed, and the squatter...
Well, Jessica kills her husband.
Well, right, that's true. Jessica thinks the husband is, although he's already like half drowned, it seems like in the lake, but she thinks he's trying to attack her while she's on the boat trying to get away. And everyone in the town has these mysterious marks on them. And this is another thing where I like, this isn't a vampire movie. Like those scars don't look like bites and they're not all on the neck. Some of them are on the face or arm or other places. But they all have some sort of mark on them. And they seem to be then converging on her, trying to, whether they're trying to kill her or perhaps they're trying to make her one of them in whatever capacity they exist as whatever they are. And she's out on the lake in the middle of this boat, basically unable to go anywhere. And she just collapses. And that's when we get this narration repeated from the beginning where she's just like, I don't know what's real, what is a dream, what is being awake, what is being alive, what is being dead. And I think that's the movie, again, is telling you right from the beginning, that's what's going on, is that we are in this sort of liminal state where neither we nor Jessica understand what is happening.
Yeah, I guess it just didn't affect me that way.
Right. No, clearly not. But I mean, I think, unlike A Bay of Blood, where I think logistically I was able to explain what was supposed to be happening, even though it was very confusing, there's no logistical explanation for what's going on in this movie. And there isn't meant to be.
Yeah. Do you think that, I mean, obviously, I think it was probably done on purpose. Do you think that the squatter and the vampire girl looking so much alike was effective or ineffective?
Yeah, I think that was maybe one thing that was a little ineffective to me because we see the old timey photograph and that's supposed to be like, oh, it's the squatter. But then we see the mute girl and they do look similar. And she's got this kind of thing around her neck and she looks very old timey. And it's like, oh, wait, but was that her? Maybe that's her in the photo or is she related to that? And that was maybe a level of confusion that I thought was unnecessary. So I don't know. That to me was like, whether it was intentional or not, maybe it just didn't quite create the feeling or the effect that it was intended to. So I'll give you that. I don't know if that was on purpose or not.
It's no, again, when we're talking about things that don't necessarily add up, but add to the effect, the Shining ending is a real mirror to that, which I think works perfectly.
Well, right. I mean, I think The Shining, though, the idea is that like he is a contemporary person who's now been sucked into the timelessness of this haunted place. Whereas here we have someone who is not contemporary, who's sort of bound to this place. If we're talking about the squatter, right? She's always been there. And she is, they're unwelcoming. The Shining, the Overlook Hotel wants Jack Torrance to join and be there forever. But this town does not want these hippies here. They do not want them around, I don't think.
Yeah, until they bite them and then they're town members, though.
Well, are they or they're dead? I mean, Jessica's husband and the friend are both dead. They don't get to join the realms.
I hear you. I mean, again, it's a classic trope of like the town's got a secret and everyone's like, you shouldn't be here, right? That type of thing. I just think we've seen it done better in other films.
I mean, that is a classic trope, and it's something I'm sure that had been done before. And, I mentioned The Turn of the Screw, which is a novel from the 19th century that is like the quintessential, are there ghosts, supernatural things, or is this woman just crazy? And had been made into film. I mean, the version of The Innocents, the 1960s version of that with Deborah Kerr is a fantastic movie that's also very influential on this. So, I mean, it's not that this is a new story that's never been told. I just think it's an effective version of it. And
right. The unreliable narrator, if you will, Josh.
Yeah, exactly. So, Dave, any further thoughts on this?
No, I just I think that it does all build to something worthwhile, even if I guess like, is there an answer to any of it? No, it doesn't. Yeah, I don't think it needs that.
Right. No, I'm in agreement. So, Jason, I feel like we've exasperated you enough. So, do you want to rate this out of 5 stand-up bases and coffins? 5 Jessicas.
5 maybe not Jessicas.
Right.
So. Yeah, I gave it 2.5. I was into the first half hour, and then it just kind of the deeper we got, the less I got involved with it. So,
all right, I give it a 3.5. I think it's a very good movie, and elements that don't add up didn't really bother me. So I'm happy to have watched it again. Dave, how do you rate this?
I gave it 4. I really liked it.
Nice.
From Dave, I'm vindicated, Josh.
We'll come back and talk about the legacy of Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1971, we are talking about my pick, Let's Scare Jessica to Death, from director John Hancock. And, I mentioned a bit of the influence of this film on contemporary horror. I mean, Oz Perkins is someone that came to mind immediately for me, but I feel like it's very much in a continuum of stuff that influenced any kinds of Ari Aster, Hereditary, any of these films where it's like, what is going on? Mysterious, spooky things are happening. And is it about trauma? Is it about mental illness? Is it about gaslighting, which is another theme here? I feel like this movie is a big source of a lot of that.
Well, Gaslight is your favorite film of all time, so
right.
of course
Jason
you're going to bring it up.
Gaslighting me into that. I forgot that thing.
I mean, from this year, I would compare it in some ways to Presence, the Steven Soderbergh film, the single setting, the kind of drama going around the ghost beyond that. And I really like Presence. So, do you have other favorites that you would say this has influenced, Josh?
Well, I mean, again, the one that came to mind was definitely I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, which is an early Oz Perkins movie. And I mean, I thought more of older films. It made me think of Val Lewton films from the 40s, like I Walked with a Zombie and Cat People. I think, Dave,
you're saying this influenced movies from the 40s, Josh?
What I'm saying is that it's a continuum here.
I'm just kidding with you.
I did also think of another movie that we've talked about on the show, which is Three Women, the Robert Altman movie, which I think is later. It was maybe in 77. Yeah. And that makes even less sense than this movie. And I thought was a really good film. And I think is something that you can see having taken from this movie.
Yeah, I like Three Women a lot as well.
Three Women is awesome. I was thinking of Picnic at Hanging Rock from a few years after. That has a similar kind of vibe to it where you don't really, it's hard to tell what else happening.
Right. And that's another movie I think that is like acclaimed and influential, but a lot of people watch that and are just really annoyed that you don't know what's going on.
That's okay. We're allowed to have different opinions, guys.
We are indeed. Jason, I know you actually watched another John Hancock movie before this, which is probably his most famous film, Bang the Drum Slowly, which is a baseball drama. How was that?
It was pretty decent, I got to say. And it was also cool that was his follow-up. I mean, it makes sense because it was a play that was adapted. It's got a very young Robert De Niro from 1973 doing a something of a Georgian accent. I don't think it's as good as his Max. Well, he can do that stuff. Like when he does Max Cady in Cape Fear, I think it's more effective. That's another good movie that you could kind of qualify. I mean, there was one before and one after Jessica here, but you could see certain influences on that as well, I would say. But it's a good, it was just a good, straightforward drama and some good character work, especially by Vincent Gardenia, who we've spoken about in Moonstruck. It was nice to see him with such a big part. So, and I think it was cool for, him to be like, hey, I just made this creepy vibe horror movie. Now I'm going to go like real kind of, almost to the point of melodrama about these two baseball players and their friendship. And one player is dying and the other one's keeping it a secret from the team. So, I would recommend it. It's not the best movie I've seen in the 70s, but it's pretty good.
All right. Yeah. That is certainly his most well-known film. And I feel like that comes up on lists of, sports movies and baseball movies. And he's basically had this kind of journeyman career. I wonder if maybe because this movie, although it's appreciated now, wasn't obviously appreciated at the time, his opportunities were mixed, but he's kept working. He's directed at films. His most recent film was from 2020. So he's still working. He directed TV and he kept up his theater career as well. So not like a top tier director, but someone who was able to keep that career going for decades.
But part of that, because I was reading about him, he was the original director on Jaws 2. And he did, to use the Edgar Wright Ant-Man situation, right? He worked like 18 months on that thing and then got fired. And he was like, well, this is stupid. I can go make a play. I can go direct or produce a play. And I get that, right? Like you put a year or two into your life. I just heard Kelly Reichardt talking about this, why she would never make a Marvel movie. She's like, what if that's my last movie? And that's how I spent my last 2 years as a filmmaker or a person, right? So I could see him being like, I spent all this time, all this passion, and you would watch Jessica and you could think like, yeah, he could be really good for Jaws 2, right? So, and then he's like, no, I can just go back to the theater where I have whatever OBs and Drama Desk awards already, and they're going to let me put up a play and we'll be up and running in 8 weeks and have that immediate feedback.
Right. And if you look at his movie career, it's not like he went back and tried to get into the blockbuster game again and failed. It's all these kind of small scale films, even if they're in various genres, and the most famous film he made is another small scale drama. So it seemed like maybe he learned some kind of lesson there or whatever, that like, here's my wheelhouse or whatever. Here's what I want to do. So I'd be curious to see more. I'm not a big sports movie guy, but I'd check that one out.
Yeah, it's very little about the sports and more about the kind. I mean, there is some of the sports stuff, but what I'll say there is like that stuff, like, all kind of plays into the themes of like, hey, we have the talent, but we're not doing well until everyone finds out what's going on with this player. And then we gel. And these are why my best friend, I'm the guy's best friend. And these are why my contract demands are the way they are, because I'm protecting my dying friend. So I think it's worth checking out for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be interested in that. So as we said, basically everyone in this cast, they were theater actors. Most of them continued in their theater careers. Zohra Lampert had been nominated for 2 Tonys. Kevin O'Connor, who plays the friend, eventually won 2 Drama Desk Awards and an Obie. And all of these actors kept working to some degree in a lot of TV guest appearances. Zohra Lampert won an Emmy for making a guest appearance on Kojak. Gretchen Corbett, known for her work on The Rockford Files. Mariclare Costello, who plays the squatter, she was on The Waltons. And Gretchen Corbett is the one of these who is still alive and still working as recently as a couple years ago. She was in Pig, the Nicolas Cage movie.
That's a good film.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
I like that one. That guy's 2 for 2 on his movies.
He is. And very, he's someone who made this small scale kind of atmospheric genre-y picture and then made a big blockbuster thing and did well on both.
But was also very atmospheric.
It was a good one.
Effort.
Yeah. Quiet Place, Day One is the one we're talking about there.
Yeah, we are.
Yes. So that's kind of all I have on those people. Anything else you want to say on the legacy of this, Jason?
Let's Scare Jessica to Death Part 2 comes out next year.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. But I could see someone remaking this. Maybe not Quentin Tarantino.
100%. So
even Oz Perkins. I mean, I hope he kind of goes in a more original direction, but I feel like this is something that you could imagine a modern filmmaker doing something with and maybe something interesting.
I could imagine that, Josh.
Yeah, and maybe you'd like it more.
Am I imagining that, or is that real, Josh?
Wow. Well, we'll leave you with that question here. So that's Let's Scare Jessica to Death. And that's this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can scare us to death online and on social media.
Ooh, please don't. I've had enough. I'm Jason Harris Comedy, or Jay Harris Comedy on all the things. Go for Jason, the #1 Letterboxd account in America right now. As you know, follow me there. We're at awesomemovieyear.com. Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. And Josh, I want to thank everyone who's been listening, because as Dave reported to us, October was our highest listener, download, whatever audience month ever. So we really appreciate everyone.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a lot of listens for this episode because we mentioned Alice's Restaurant so many times. And isn't that our most downloaded episode ever somehow?
Most downloaded episode ever, which is very strange.
We just got to bring that in every time now, see if we can.
We'll just keep doing that episode over and over again.
That's good. It's awesome Alice's Restaurant year.
Damn hippies.
Yeah.
You can find some old things from me at joshbellhateseverything.com, including probably what I wrote when I first saw this movie. I am at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky, and on Letterboxd. And if you're on Letterboxd and you watch this film or any of the movies we talk about on the show, tag your review Awesome Movie Year. We would love to know what you think. And check out our producer David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod.
Jason, what's in our next episode?
Josh, it's finally time that we cover Bruce Lee. I think we're all excited for that. It's The Big Boss.
That's our foreign film pick, so tune in next time for The Big Boss, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.